Inside the Birds is back. What's up, everybody? It is Adam Caplan alongside Geoff Mosher here as we do our free agency preview. This will be part 2. If you haven't checked out part 1 yet, in which we went through all of the offensive positions, quarterback, wide receiver, running back, offensive line, make sure you check that out on any major podcast platform that you subscribe to with Inside the Birds. But this episode, Adam, is a time where we look at the defense, and I think it's fair to say, whereas with the offense, we spent a lot of time at wide receiver as the main area that the Eagles would look at. Here we move to defense, and there's more than just one position, right? We're going to talk corner, safety, defensive line, linebacker. There really isn't a position here on defense when you break it into those 4 groups that the Eagles couldn't upgrade.
Exactly. Look, they need everything. So even where you think they might be strong at D tackle, they're really not in terms of depth. Defensive end, they don't have a high-end pass rusher. Brandon Graham's a very good football player, but he's not what we call quick twitch. Mm-hmm. They lack speed at that position, so they need help. They need help in the defense. But one little thing I do want to add, which I heard recently from a pretty good source, you're going to see some subtle changes on their wide 9. They still they're going to run a wide 9. That'll never not happen with Jim Schwartz being the D coordinator. Mm-hmm. But we had talked when I put the news out about a month ago on Matt Burke. There's going to be some strategy changes. Because with the previous D-line coach Philip Daniels, I was just not a part of it. Had he kept his job, it might have been, but he didn't keep his job, so they want to get this in there. And obviously with Jim Washburn's son moving in there, he's going to be a part of that room, that defensive line room. Though we know he's going to be involved a lot with personnel. Mm-hmm. So you're going to see, folks, and I'll look for this at OTAs in April, and just not that I'm an expert at this stuff, but you're probably going to see a little bit more strategy in terms of matchups. Where I thought, Geoff, and this is something I heard from other teams as well. You were not getting a lot. Eagles were not taking advantage of matchups where they clearly should have won, other than the Seattle one, which you and I knew go against Joey Hunt. My mom could have put that together. I mean, but you knew they were going to win that with Fletcher Cox. But overall, I think going forward, based on what I've heard, Schwartz is going to get what he wants from the matchups against the offensive lines and so forth.
Now, does your mom have a really good club move or a swim move?
I got it. That's fun. My mom, I don't think she plays tennis anymore. My mom turns 90 in March.
Wow.
All right. We had a surprise party for her in December before she went to Florida, and she's doing great. Yeah, she's awesome. Amazing, my mother. Yeah,
she's a plug-and-play mom. She can just put her in any scheme, and she's great, good to go.
Yeah. Although, she the only concern I have is she's a sudden breaker that we need to as you get older, sometimes you pump the brakes a little bit. So, anyway,
you got to use every advantage you can get. But anyway.
Yes.
Well, that's interesting. I want to follow up with you on that. Do you think, though, that playing a modified or an adjusted wide 9 is something, because we know how much Jim is a proponent of the wide 9 and almost the godfather of it.
Yeah.
No, I know. But the fact that they're adjusting and modifying a little bit, as you're mentioning, is that other people or Doug or somebody from above saying, look, let's modify this. We don't need to play it as much as we have, or is that?
No, they're going to play it. But what it was is, Geoff, when I put the Burke stuff out, the reason why I thought it was interesting was not because he's coached the D-line before. He hasn't. Right. It's just that he's really super smart, talking to guys who've coached with him over the years. And then when I heard Jeremiah Washburn was going to be a part of that, whatever, we didn't know. Of course, we didn't know what his title would be. But his coaching title is going to be part. What I'm told, he's going to be part of that D-line room, I guess, one way or the other. He's going to help out with information and strategy. This is something that clearly was missing. You would have to really understand the wide 9. A coach told me from another team who's run it before. You can't just. There's some wide 9s over the years where you would just run up, because it was really put in. I don't know if you know this, Geoff. It was put in by Jim Washburn for the Super Bowl in '99 when he was with the Titans. It was put in that year specifically late to go against the Rams. And just get up. They had to affect the passer,
right?
But I think teams have kind of figured out what it is. So now what's step two? What when they start figuring out what you're doing, what are you going to do to counteract that? And I think that's what we're going to see here. It may be flopping ends. It might be moving. We know that they move ends and nickel, whether it's Curry or somebody else. Well, they've been doing that forever. I mean, this is nothing new. But in terms of strategy against an opponent, how could they win? How could they win each week against the opponent? I think that's the difference between years past.
No, that's a good point. It'll be interesting to see exactly what changes with that. I mean, as you're mentioning, it's not going to be an overwhelming wholesale change, but even if there's an adjustment, it'll be interesting to see what they do that. So let's talk about how to upgrade the areas of weakness here. Now, I have argued, and I'll maintain it, that as much as we obsess over cornerback, I think the Eagles are weaker at safety because they've ignored that position longer than corner. And they're really, right now, Malcolm Jenkins, I know there's some uncertainty, but I have a feeling it'll work out. But even after Malcolm, with Rodney McLeod set to hit free agency and probably not coming back, the next two safeties after Malcolm are Rudy Ford and Marcus Epps. That's your safety picture right now. Malcolm Jenkins, Rudy Ford, Marcus Epps. You say what you want about cornerback, about Sidney Jones being a disappointment, or Rasul Douglas can't run, or Avonte Maddox is only a slot, but at least I named three cornerbacks who've played in the NFL at somewhat of a level before. After Malcolm, you got nothing.
Yeah, but they're both equally an issue in terms of talent, and obviously it's safety youth, man. They got to get younger. I know you say they ignored it. I know over the years there are certain guys that they wanted. They just went before they could get them. And unfortunately, though, it leaves them in a bind where they don't really have a choice. They got to get, like, if by a shocking development that Roseman keeps all 10 draft picks, Geoff, what do you think of them coming out of this draft with two safeties?
Well, I think I think it's a great idea. It's almost like the old what do you think of my team's execution joke by John McKay, the old Bucs coach in the 70s, and he said, "I'm all for it."
Well, here's the thing, though. Right? Here's the problem, and if they don't,
but I don't know if they're going to do that. Right?
No, but okay. So let's look at free agency. Okay, we'll start with safety here.
Yeah.
Von Bell is going to be an enormous contract. He just changed agents. He's formerly of the Saints. He started off a little rocky first year or so with the Saints, and then he really turned it on when he became a full-time starter. Not only a starter, but when they used him the right way, he's a really good football player. He's going to get a huge deal. Justin Simmons is the next guy. He's not. I don't see him walking. Denver will find out one way or the other. Then after that, it's a bunch of journeymen or older players. Demeir Serrano's not a bad player who's got some scheme versatility,
right?
Which will cost a little bit. Devin McCourty's older. We don't forget about McLeod. Ha Clint Dix has been a disappointment. He's never been the player that a lot of teams thought he would be. Tony Jefferson's come back from torn ACL. He was just cut. Trey Boston, I have no idea why he keeps moving on. This will be he's been on 3 teams in 3 years. It could be his 4th. Other than that, Geoff, Jimmy Ward had a good year. He's had a lot of injuries. Carl Jones was just a box player. It's a grab bag at safety. So quite frankly, you got to look to the draft.
Right. Well, here's a position, Adam, that I think that you have to look to the draft no matter what you do because you need young developmental safety. I've been screaming that for 2 years. So even if they do sign a safety in free agency, I still think they need to draft a young developmental safety in the first 3 rounds. I mean, I'm not one to say I'm best player available a lot. So I don't want to force positions on teams or at certain rounds just because you need it. But you can't go you've gone 6 or 7 years now without taking a safety in the first 3 rounds. You've got nothing there. So in my opinion, just like last year, you knew you needed a successor to Jason Peters, so you traded up for the best safety. Do what you can do this year in round 1, 2, or 3 to get yourself a good safety that you think can be a starter for you for the long term and maybe even contribute a nickel and on special teams year 1. So my position will be to do that, but also to sign one because you can never tell about rookies. Look at J-Jaw, right? But as you're mentioning now, the market seems to have a lot of guys who are long in the tooth, whether it's, as you mentioned, McCourty or Jimmy Ward's 29, which isn't really old, but
he's had a lot of injuries.
I would love for them a ton of injuries. I would love for them to find that 24, 25, 26-year-old guy, but I've looked at the list and I don't see it. So to me, maybe a guy like Tony Jefferson, who's 28, released from the Ravens, or maybe the guy from Minnesota who had a really nice year, Anthony Harris.
Anthony
he's
Harris
28.
is good. Yeah.
I would say
good.
instead of trying to blow these guys away with 5 years deals, if you can get one of these guys on a 3-year deal, then you can probably still get a good year or two while you transition to your younger safeties.
Problem with Jefferson is he's come back to an ACL and he just got released, so I don't see that as a possibility.
Well, doesn't that help them? Maybe you get a 1-year prove-it deal.
1-year deal. That would be a 1-year prove-it deal. By the way, super high character guy.
Yes.
Really high character. Eric DaCosta, the Ravens GM, put a really nice statement out. Clayton Geathers is out there as a younger guy. He's had some injuries. To me, you're adding a minimum. I don't want to say minimum, but you got to add 2 safeties. I mean, one way or the other, whether it's a veteran or a younger guy. Bell's going to cost too much. I don't see Simmons being available.
Simmons?
Justin Simmons, who's the Denver safety, is really good.
Okay, I'm glad you brought him up. Do you say he's not going to be available? Because we get asked about him.
I don't see the Broncos. I don't see them letting him walk. I just don't.
Do you think he gets a tag, or do you think they just give him the money?
I'll know probably at the combine who's getting tagged. Remember, they have Chris Harris to deal with,
right?
Who's already said he wants to test free agency. I don't know that Denver has anyone else they have to really worry about that they would tag. One thing, and thanks to our friend Herb, and I did get it confirmed from a team. This year only, because it's the last year of the collective bargain agreement, because it's in the last year. Every NFL team gets 2 tags to use except one, but you can't use 2 franchise tags. You could do two transition tags, or a combination of a transition tag and a franchise tag. So this is interesting. Now, what the word around the league is, once they get, obviously, if they get the CBA done before free agency starts, which is a long shot, but if they do, then we're going to go back to the old system of just having, you can only have 1 tag, either or, franchise or transition. So if you're the Titans and you have Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry, you could tag both. You could do 1 transition and 1 franchise. So for Denver, I don't. They're a bad football team. They've got a defensive head coach. I don't think there's a prayer in hell that Simmons walks. I just don't see it. He's too good, and they need all the help they can get.
Right. So let's try to be as realistic as possible, because I think we run into the same situation here at safety that we talked about in the last pod with wide receiver. There are going to be guys who are not A+ level, like Robbie Anderson at wide receiver, who are going to get A to A+ money. And it doesn't seem like the Eagles want to be that franchise anymore that gives away the real long-term blockbuster deal to a guy who's not worth it. So you look for the bargain, right? The bargains 3 years ago were Brandon Brooks and Rodney McLeod. Is there a bargain guy out there, someone who's not, same thing with Malcolm Jenkins a few years ago. They got him at a bargain deal. Is Demarius Randall at 28 a possible bargain deal as the 5th or 6th best safety on the market who's not going to get a blockbuster deal? Is that?
I would say Randall's at next tier, tier 2 safety. Bell and Simmons were the top 2, and then it drops off to Randall. Trey Boston, for the life of me, Geoff, he had 1 monster year. For whatever reason, he just is not being able to secure the kind of deal. He went to Arizona for a year. He went to Carolina. He might run the Chargers, but he put up big numbers. But it's not a good sign. Teams simply are not willing to do this. Now, you mentioned something interesting. How about a guy that they can get sort of on the cheap? He's young enough, and high character guy, no issues with him. Drew Rosenhaus is his agent. They've done tons of deals over the years with Drew. Trey Boston, look, he's not all. I wouldn't call him old.
He's 28 years old.
Yeah, he turns 28 in June, so he's more of a center field safety,
right?
Yeah, so he would be a good name based on what you're talking about.
No, that's a good one. So Trey Boston, Demarius Randall, and maybe here's a guy who might get overpaid, but I'm not 100% certain because he did have an injury this past year and only played 7 games. But Adrian Phillips is a guy who has played well at times.
Great special teams player. He would.
Very good special team. It seems like he'd be a really good fit. I just can't tell if he's going to get more money than he's worth.
Yeah,
you think he's backup?
Yeah, he's not a starter. No, he had to play this year because what's his name got hurt. James, the former first rounder.
Derwin James, right. And then they drafted Nazir Adderley, right? So you're right. They moved on past Adrian Phillips. Yeah,
right. So Phillips is really a 4th safety and a special teams player, a tremendous special teams player, by the way. Sean Davis is out there who got hurt.
Yeah, I'm just saying maybe Phillips could be that bargain deal. He's your number 3 safety. He plays in your big dime package and special teams, and
Now
you get
that
him
would
into the
work. Now
bargain.
that would work. Like that could be, and
Right.
he's a
So
high
let's
character guy.
yeah, let's go through the scenario. You bring back Malcolm. You draft a safety
Well,
somewhere in the first.
by the way,
maybe
Malcolm is under contract,
he
but
is
he
under
said he's
contract.
not showing up unless he's not showing up if he doesn't get his new deal. So
Right. I think for the purposes of this conversation, we kind of have to assume that it's some way or another he's going to be on the team. If not, we'll have some later pods to really figure out how to redo safety even more. But I can see Malcolm, a young drafted safety, a guy like Adrian Phillips or Trey Boston who can help you in nickel and dime packages in a limited role, maybe on special teams, and then maybe, as you're mentioning, you draft that second safety in the 4th, 5th, or 6th round and hope you get something out of that.
see, I'm not opposed to going second round. This guy, if there's a special safety, we're way away from the draft.
First, and I'm already assuming that one of their safeties is going to be drafted in the first 3 rounds. I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I'm drafting one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm signing one that's not super old. Who like Damaris? Someone we'll get the name once I can zero in on who I think they're going after. They've got to have a guy who's not as old as Malcolm Jenkins
or Malcolm, right?
Yes, yeah, right. Someone who's
absolutely
27, 28. He's got 2 or 3 years left in him. Trey Boston fits that. The guy you mentioned, Randall. Yeah, those would be the 2 guys that I would just early on here. Sean Davis, I need to get more information on who was hurt last season for the Steelers. Campbell, the safety who was with the Packers, who was drafted by the Browns, I think, who's from Philly.
Right.
And yeah, he's more, but he's a backup. But they need someone who could start. And you brought this up to me a couple of shows ago, and I thought it was a great point. Someone that doesn't have to start year one, that maybe when Malcolm's done, will take Malcolm's job.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, just for our listeners, the combine starts not this coming week, but the week after.
Correct.
So you'll be there. I'll be talking with people. So when we do our post-combine pods, we'll have a better idea of some of these guys who we're not sure what their value. You never know. There are a lot of surprises in free agency. So maybe a guy like Randall, a couple of teams really love, and we'll find out that he's going to get paid higher than
and
we even
right.
think.
And I usually right. I can usually get the ranges of what I'm hearing where the money's going.
Right.
For instance, you want to transition to corner because that's obviously a monster need for the football team. So, I got to put Byron. By the way, there is Byron Jones. I got to move him up. Like Byron Jones. Okay, so my buddy Tony Pauline put out that the Eagles are going to whatever. I don't remember what he put out there, but I could tell you it's accurate that they have information. They have interest in him. Here, just knowing the way it works, covering this business for 21 years, I've put stuff out there when a team is interested. And I know for a fact that they did, but they try to deny it. What happens is if they think the money's too rich, there's no offer. There's thank you very much, and they move on. So if his agent, in this case it's Jared Fox, if this agent who's done plenty of deals with the Eagles over the years, if they think it's astronomical, and my understanding is the Cowboys have not made an offer or anything. They have not. Now they can obviously when they have Jones until March 18th. They're obviously going to sit down with his agent and talk to him, and they'll see where they go. If they decide not to make an offer, Jones is going to have a lot of interest in free agency because he's got positional versatility. He's a great kid, high character. Did overcome a hip procedure a year ago. Came back very well from it. And talking to the Cowboys, they spoke very well of him. So we'll see where that goes. But that's certainly someone to keep on your radar there.
Well, he's probably going to be considered the number 1 free agent corner on the market, Adam. Do you think the Eagles are in a position where they're willing to compete with free agents who are going to make number 1 free agent money?
Well, Bradbury from Carolina is really good too. You could, depending on how you want to play him. Byron Jones to me, yes, Byron Jones to me is better in that he's got better positional versatility because you can move him. He's played slot corner. He could play outside corner. He could play safety, which he played earlier in his career. Good player, man, and coachable. The knock on him, and I think it's because of scheme, and I think it has less to do with him, is he doesn't have the turnover numbers. But if you look at his what's called stickiness, his ability to stay on the receiver,
He'd fit right in with the Eagles, by the way.
Yeah, okay, right, because lack of turnovers. But you know what? See that? Okay, so you bring that up. If this, it's not a scheme adjustment the Eagles are going to have. It's just that it's a strategy adjustment. Just because you're going to get different veteran coaches in there in terms of the front four. This is going to help their secondary. Maybe they start getting more turnovers, Geoff, because let's face it, this wide nine is not producing turnovers that they should have had. It gets sack numbers, but it does not. They have not, since Schwartz has been here, they're very mediocre with turnovers. So I'm expecting at least to be a little bit of a change in that number going forward. Right.
So the problem I see, Adam, with the Eagles in this regard is that I think we both agree that it's hard to just rely on the draft here to upgrade this position because cornerbacks in the draft tend to be 50-50 no matter how high you pick them, and B, the Eagles haven't really drafted well at corner lately anyway. Not that that's a reason to be deterred into doing it, but it's difficult to just say we're going to remake this position through the draft and expect to be competitive. But when you look at the available talent outside of Byron Jones and Bradbury, they face two real issues. One is either age, the other is position versatility. Most of the people who I look at on the list are too old or just slot corners. Chris Harris, old and slot. Darqueze Dennard played his best with the Bengals in the slot. Jimmy Smith, 32 years old. Kendall Fuller, outside only 25 years old, but mostly a slot.
He's
so
slot.
That doesn't really help the Eagles in their quest to get a good outside corner. There was a report by somebody, and I apologize for not remembering who, that the Eagles were going to be suitors for Chris Harris at free agency. And I'm really surprised by that.
I that would stun me.
Unless, Adam, this folds into our safety conversation with how difficult it is. Do you think maybe they're keeping the option open of moving Maddox to safety because they have both LeBlanc and maybe a veteran like Harris or someone else?
I have not heard them putting him safety. Oh, by the way, with LeBlanc, I'm told that he has a injury conversion. So right now, $250,000 of his $900,000 base salary. $250 of his base salary becomes fully guaranteed on March 22nd. He also has a roster bonus of $150,000 on March 22nd. So they actually have a decision to make with him. I would assume they're going to keep him. He's been a good story. This has been a really good find for their pro staff. I don't know who found him, but that was a heck of a move. He's been a good story of development, despite the foot injury. He's done a good job. So slot corner, as you well know, and our listeners know, that's not a position they need any help with. They're good there. They just have to they have to get more consistency from it, but they're good there.
How about 25-year-old Eli Apple, who won't probably be among the top 6 or 7 free agent corner signed, but is young enough and had enough potential to be a first-round pick? He's from Voorhees, which is my neck of the woods here in South Jersey. Do you think that's like one of those bargain buys that we talk about?
I don't see him. No,
I'm not sure bringing him close to home is the best thing in general.
He's a fourth corner. He's not a starting corner. He started to play a little bit better with the Saints, but it's just a missed first round pick. I mean, the Giants missed on him. He's an unrestricted free agent. The Saints were at a point where they had some injuries at corner, and they wanted to make sure. I remember Lattimore got hurt. They wanted to make sure that they had some depth. But when you look at the cornerback group, we mentioned Bradbury. Harris is more of a slot corner. Byron Jones, the Eagles are going to have some interest in. Jimmy Smith is long. He's talented. And when I say long, he's tall. He's got length. Good player, but he's older. Trey Waynes is up and down. Good player, but up and down. Logan Ryan's a slot corner. Josh Norman got cut. Forget about it. He's not what they're looking for. He had a very rough year. Now I'm told though, by a good personnel source that the numbers that are out there from PFF, this guy's actually a coach who's already graded Josh Norman because they knew that this team knew that he was going to get cut. He does not even come close to agreeing with the 16 touchdowns that supposedly Norman gave up. Because the problem, and this guy loves PFF, but he has a problem with it. When they're throwing out numbers like that, he goes, "How would you even know if you don't know who the coverage was, who was covering?
Right?
Like you don't know Norman's coverage responsibility. Like, how would you know?"
I would have zero issue with the Eagles bringing in Josh Norman on a 1-year deal. And you know what? Maybe
he's tall.
Could he play the slot now?
No, he doesn't run well.
No, he's always an outside corner. Yeah, I would have zero issue with it.
Yeah.
Because if he stinks, you can cut him. Go. I mean, when I'm talking about a 1 year deal,
he's made a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
I give him a make good contract, which means I give him a 1 year deal. We'll pay a veteran minimum for your age. Take it or leave it. You want to win? Come here. If you don't, go somewhere else.
All right. So since we agree, I'm sorry. Since we agree here that upgrading corner, based on the list that's available to us right now, is going to be difficult from either a financial or a position versatility standpoint. This seems like an area where a trade might come into play. Now, Hunter Brody our producer put me onto something ESPN was throwing out an idea recently on one of their programming, and
I think I know where you're going. Go ahead.
The potential trade.
I'm laughing at this. Yeah.
Right, where the Eagles trade Sidney Jones and a third-round pick to the Lions for Darius Slay.
Can you imagine this? The Lions would hang up on the Eagles literally in a half a second. Come on.
That was my first thought. Why would the Lions do that, right? I mean, Sidney Jones has proven nothing in a third round. But if they don't think that they can retain Darius or that he's going to play under his contract, then maybe something comes into play there.
Yeah. Now look, listen. If I'm the Eagles, I figure out a way because they looked into a Slay if I remember correctly. They looked into Slay at the trade deadline, but the Lions wanted a lot of compensation. The Lions are in no position to be traded. Their defense was. I had teams tell me, based on their tape study, there were times last season their defense was not competitive. Think about that.
Well, it's a good thing they hired Matt Patricia as their head coach.
Well, that's the point. I mean, he's supposed to get their defense to play at an elite level or a high level. They're not even close to that. And by the way, they're really bad at corner. Justin Coleman's a really good slot. Slay is one of starting outside corners. What else do they have? Nothing. But Rashawn Melvin's a free agent who's a journeyman who's 30 years old. They don't have anybody. They missed on Tease Tabor. They can't. Look, and don't forget, Martha Ford, the owner, said they have to be playing meaningful games in December. Well, you can't do that with trading by Darius Slay.
Yeah, he also only has a year left on his deal. He's 29, and he's going to make $10 million in base salary next year. So you're going to have to pay a pretty penny. You're going to have to give up a lot and only have him for 1 year.
You got to give him first. If I'm the Lions, I don't take any less than a first. And now a first and
for a 29-year-old corner.
Well, you're going to get.
I mean, I know that's not 32, but yeah.
Oh, he could run and he's long. And by the way, Jim Schwartz coached him. I
like him a lot. I just don't know for a guy who's only got 1 year left, makes $10 million and is 29, if it's right for them to think that they're going to get a first round pick in return. If he had 2 years left, maybe that's when they got Ronald Darby.
Well, no, but you have to be able to get a deal done with him, obviously, if the team acquiring him. But if I'm the Lions, I do not take less than a first round pick. This guy's a good football player. He just turned 29, by the way, in January. So,
correct. All right. Well, I do think though, when we talk about this, and we will in the future, given the list of free agent names, Howie may have to get creative here. I mean, he really might have to look at the trade market.
We'll look at trade market, but I don't see a match with Slay unless they're willing to pay. Because I'm trying to think from the Lions standpoint, when the owner puts them on blast and says, "Look, this is what we're expecting. If not, well, you know what's going to happen. She might blow that thing up." Right. So there's some names out there. I need to find out more on Trey Waynes. I need to find out kind of where teams are with him. I know on Byron Jones where teams are, and Bradbury's really good. I need to get a little bit more information on him, but it would be Bradbury, Jones, and Waynes are the best young corners out there. Yeah, and Byron Jones makes the most sense of all of them because you can move him around, and he's a high character kid. And I talking to the Cowboys, they love him. It's just that he wants so much money. He's gonna command so much money. Yeah, and they have a major issue with their quarterback, and they've got other free agents, and they just don't. The word I keep hearing from Cowboys sources is they just don't know that they can keep him.
Yeah, well, I can't imagine how they would, and be able to pay Dak and be able to pay Amari. So something's got to give for them.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it comes back to him and Bradbury. Corners make a lot of money, especially when they hit free agency. I don't know that the Eagles, because they haven't been in quite a while, are going to be that team giving out that blockbuster deal to a free agent. Anything.
But one.
So
let's put it this way. Look at it this way. If you're going to do it, it's got to be with a young football player. Okay, whether it's Bradbury who turns 27 in August, and Byron Jones who you have a lot of intel on because you've gone up. He plays in your division,
right?
His entire career, and he's been a good football player. You could move him around. He's a matchup guy. And he's also not old. I mean, he turns 28 in September, so you figure you can get at least 3 years out of him. And these structures, Geoff, as you know, are pretty much 2 years for free agency anyway.
Of course.
Jones is a guy that I'd be shocked if they don't go pretty hard on him.
Well, I'm sure they will. I just wonder how much. I feel like that's the guy who's probably going to command the biggest paycheck.
Well,
no matter what.
right.
So,
now if he wants, we're not even to the point we could talk money yet. But if let's say they're 4 or 5 team in it, and the money goes to $15 million a year, and they put a value of 12 on them, then they're out, and they never make them an offer, and they were never there. But I just knowing the way that this works, they got to see where he's at with money. Sure, so we'll find out. We'll know more later.
And by the way, I neglected to mention, and I probably should have done this at the start of corner. They have Jalen Mills, who's going to be a free agent. I suppose if things don't work out, I mean, he's always there as someone that they can bring back on a team-friendly deal if he's willing to accept that. I don't know if that he's going to get anything more than 1 or 2 years in free agency himself because of his injury history, especially last year. So they might find themselves in the position where you're bringing back Jalen Mills and you only have one corner spot you're upgrading, but you're drafting a couple of guys high, and there you go.
You need speed, though. The thing in Jalen's been a great story of development, but we all know they don't have anyone who can run on the outside. So
no doubt about it.
With Mills and Darby as free agents, they got to do something.
I agree. All right, we're going to move on to the front seven part of the defense, but before we do that, we'll take a quick break for a word from our great sponsors. Hey, it's Geoff Mosher. Adam Caplan and I love using Anchor for our Inside the Birds podcast every week. It's so user-friendly, anyone can create their own podcast, and you should too. Just download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Anchor gives you everything you need to start your own podcast from your phone or computer. Its creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast for a professional sound, and Anchor will distribute your podcast for you to Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and so many other platforms. It can be heard by everyone, just like Inside the Birds. You can also make money from your pod with no minimum listenership. What are you waiting for? Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to create your podcast today. Hey, it's Geoff Mosher. Are you interested in money? Yep, I thought so. Well, on the Talk Money with Mesh Lakhani podcast, Mesh will follow paper trails, chat with experts, and break down complex ideas to bring clarity to the mystical financial phenomena and help listeners uncover the story behind their money. Each of these compelling stories will hit a broad range of subjects ranging from buying Bitcoin, dealing with student debt, and everything in between. So if you're interested in money, and I know you are, check out the Talk Money with Mesh Lakhani podcast on Anchor. All right, Adam, let's examine the defensive line here. It's weird because it's not, unlike corner and safety, it's not like there's no depth here. They've got a lot of names at defensive end. Tackle, not so much, right? They have to fortify tackle, although they had some young kids play well. Anthony Rush played well at the end of last year. They're onto something with him, as you had mentioned many times during the season. Jernigan has probably played his last down as an Eagle, I would think. They had a kid, though. Who's the other kid? Trayvon Hester?
Well, Hester's now is with Washington. But
no, I was thinking Deshaun Hall, but he's a D-end anyway.
Hassan Ridgeway did a good job.
Hassan Ridgeway, thank you.
Yeah, he's up too. So right now under contract, they only have Cox, Jackson who's come off a serious injury, barely played, Bruce Hector, Anthony Rush, and Albert, not Miller Huggins. So yeah,
not Bob.
That's
Huggins.
it. So they're Bob Huggy, he's still coaching in West Virginia. So what they're gonna have to do, Geoff, is they're gonna have to dress this position. To me, here's my call. I'm gonna throw this back at you. Do you sign a free agent? And obviously Jernigan, is their own free agent, or do you go in the draft?
I mean, I would sign a free agent, but I would sign my own I would bring Hassan Ridgeway back. I thought he played fairly well, enough to be your number 3 or compete with Anthony Rush to be your number 3 defensive tackle behind Cox and Jackson. And then I would use the draft Bruce Hector is still decent if you can bring him back as well. Or actually, he's under contract. Am I not mistaken? He's still under contract? I
think I have him as a free. Let me see. Or do I have him? Okay. Yeah. He looks like he's. You know what? He is under contract. But he's under contract. But you don't. He's a 4th or 5th tackle.
Right.
Your rotation right now is
starting tackles. You know what I'm saying?
No, but here's the problem. Cox is over 30. Malik Jackson is he just turned 30. They need those developmental guys other than Rush, who's more of a project, though he's been a great story to this point. They got to get they got to get Ridgeway back, and I'm drafting somebody. Okay, they got 10 picks. Doesn't have to be in the first round. I'm sure it won't. Doesn't have to be in the second round. It probably won't be. Third round, I'm good with that. For the Eagles, I'm good with.
I'm absolutely fine with that.
And I want a guy who could rush the passer. That they rush is strictly one thing against the run. That's all he does. He's a mammoth human being, huge with long arms.
Yeah, no, but I agree with you. This is a position where I don't see the Eagles going out and giving a 3 or 4 or 5 year deal to a free agent. I think that maybe they sign a veteran who can help hold the fort down for a year, kind of like they did with Patrick Robinson or Chris Long or like Garrett Blunt, be part of a rotation where you're getting a bargain for a year. But as far as, fortifying this position for the future, it's got to be through the draft. And I would love to see him take DT in second, third, or fourth round or whatever, because I do think that is an area where they need a young guy.
All right. So if they decide to add one veteran, which they certainly could do, because you want to go in with an idea of the 5 guys that you're going to carry 4 and you might carry 5 depending on what happens. Because remember, Jackson's coming off a significant injury. They did have at the trade deadline last year interest in bringing Bo Allen back. I don't. It's been so long. I don't remember where it went. I just know they had interest in bringing him back because it was strictly because of the injury that they were going through with Jackson out. And they were real light at tackle. Remember, some games they dressed only 3 because they had no one else.
Right.
But the Bucks weren't doing anything, so it never went anywhere. But so Bo Allen, by the way, is up. His contract's up. So if they're going to bring
Bo Allen come back,
yeah, and that's it. That's why I brought up. So if they're going to bring someone back who knows their defense, it would be Bo Allen. I'll tell you what, he's a terrific third tackle. It's really remarkable. 7th round pick. I didn't think much of him when the Eagles first got him, but boy, he really built his career up, and then he showed he had a little bit of pass rush. Though he's not real long. He's just real strong strong as hell. High character guy. They know him real well, and that would be a name to keep an eye on if they bring. If they're looking to bring a veteran in. I'm looking at the list. That would make sense that it's not.
How about Chris Jones? He would be wonderful. Right next to his former college mate Fletcher Cox. It would only cost him about $22 million a year.
Yeah, Chris Jones. Yeah, I mean Jaron Reed's out there.
Sean Robinson.
Yeah, the guys that would make of all the veterans that are out there. Bo Allen would make some sense. Oh, I got another one. Your guy Damian Square. They could always bring him back.
I saw that, but I always felt he was better in a 3-4 as a kind of an undersized tackle than
that's when
a 4-3.
Right. That's Chip Kelly.
Great guy, by the way.
Oh, Damian Square from Alabama, right? What's that?
Yes. Yeah. No. Damian Square. Yeah, he did go to Alabama. He came. Chip Kelly drafted him.
Yep.
He
signed him as an undrafted free agent. I think. I don't think he was drafted.
No, that's what I read. I'm sorry, you're right. An undrafted free agent. And he stuck around for a while. Really good, versatile player. But again, does he fit that upfield burst? He'd probably be more of a rundown type of guy.
Right. So all right. So we've talked about DT. Let's talk about defensive end. See, here's the problem with this group. And you mentioned it in passing. They got a lot of guys.
Yep.
They have one guy who's got speed, and he didn't even play for the trade. It was Jannard Avery. The little snaps he got, he looked good, but he barely played.
Right.
This is clearly an off-season project. This is, I'd mentioned 2 years ago when we first started the show that Dallas Goedert was an off-season project for the coaches, and that's exactly what happened. I'm expecting Avery to be an off-season project for the defensive line coaches. However Howard Schwartz is going to ask them to run that room. They've got to figure out a way to use Avery because this kid is so quick twitch. You and I saw him in the locker room. He's kind of small, but man, he's built to run. And look, this guy they've had their eye on for a year and a half. They got to. This is on Schwartz here, Geoff. He's got to figure this out with this kid.
Right, but if you're Howie Roseman and you give up a 4th round pick, again, you also probably think of him as an asset for the future. You got him for the future.
Future is future now.
In the future, right? Well, that's my point. Is that people want this team to upgrade defensive end, and I just say, how are they going to do it? Are they going to sign Jadeveon Clowney? No. They are not going to sign Jadeveon Clowney. Are they going to be in the running for whoever is the second or third best defensive end on the market? No, like Yannick Ngakoue? No, they're not.
Yannick Ngakoue is the best DN on the market. He's the best speed rusher. Yeah, he's going to cost over $20 million a season. That's not going to happen.
I just don't see it happening, and I don't even. Everybody says, "Well, then you get somebody in the draft, first, second, third round." Look, I always advocate if there's an amazing guy there, you take him. So fine, if they're drafted in the first or second round, and there's an unbelievable DN that they think is going to be a Pro Bowler for 10 years, go ahead and pick him. But I just, you got 6 or 7 guys under contract here. I don't know what else that you expect anybody would expect the Eagles to do here.
I just would like to see one speed rusher because Barnett and Graham are not, I wouldn't call them speed rushers. Sweat's their third-ish DN. If Vinny's up,
Right.
Avery they got to figure him out. Sharif Miller was a project. They knew that when they drafted him. Now you're hoping now that he can get on the field. Osman's coming up to an ACL.
You got to shed the project label now.
Yeah, he's got to get on the field. Osman is coming off an ACL, and Deshaun Hall, despite his great preseason, was not even used. I mean, that was just ridiculous. That was that. I don't know every reason why they didn't want Philip Daniels back, but that's a real bad indictment on Daniels that he could not get Deshaun Hall could not, despite their issues with development of the younger players. The fact that he couldn't get on the field, Miller was, Osman got hurt, Avery they couldn't use, Miller couldn't get on the field, he wasn't ready. Josh Sweat was sort of up and down. None of these young guys got on the field, and that was,
right.
That's pretty big when you're trying to keep your job.
Right. Well, the only thing I can see them re-signing Vinny to a 1 or a 2 year deal. I can see them letting him walk as well, but
we'll be a 1. It wouldn't go 2. Yeah, they would go 1.
2, maybe structured as a 1, but yeah, probably 1. And then try to draft a kid if he's there. If not, I don't see them going crazy here. I know a lot of people want them to, but they got names. They got to just figure out a way to make these names that they've got play. These young, they have youth. They have the kid you just talked about. They got from the Browns, Avery. They had drafted Miller. So that's 2 young guys. Derek Barnett's not old by any stretch of the means. So they've got, and we haven't even talked about it. Joel Osman will come back next year and try to give it another go again to make the team. So he would have been on the team if he'd stayed healthy last year. So they got names. They just got to figure out a way to use them all.
I agree. All right, let's move to linebacker.
Yeah, there's not much to say about linebacker, right? Because we just even the 2 guys that they got in free agency last year didn't even make it through halfway through the year. So what's the point of even talking about getting?
I'll tell you what. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's depending on what they do, we could have 3 new starters. Gurjay Hill's up. Bradham, I would minor surprise if he'd be back.
Right.
He's making really good coin. And Nate Gary's nice story. I give Ken Flajole credit for developing this kid. It's been a really surprising story. But there's a saying in coaching, when you have someone like Gary, you're always going to be looking for somebody else to replace him.
Of course.
This is not good. If he's starting this year, fine. Former college safety, it's kind of amazing that he's starting, but they need someone who's bigger.
I would try to bring Camus back if I could, and kind of take advantage of the fact that he's
hurt. I mean, he's got to get healthy.
Right. Bring back Camus. Obviously TJ Edwards showed you something a little bit last year.
Yeah, maybe
Nate Gary's still under contract. So those are 3 linebackers right there, and draft a kid early, first, second, third. Well, not first, but
they ain't doing
second,
first.
Third,
but
fourth.
I would first. I would look. It doesn't always work out for them. I know people like to beat them up about linebacker Matt McCoy. I get it. It was a total miss, but that was long time ago. Kendricks was a hit.
But there were a lot of names, even the Akeem Jordans, the Omar Gaithers, they go on and on and on.
Yeah, there were plenty of misses. But
Chris Gokong,
I got to say one thing about Gokong. Well, he was overdrafted, and Stuart Bradley tore his ACL.
Yeah, Stuart Bradley.
Unfortunately, he was going to be a stud. Yeah, he was going to be really good, and he was never the same after flight night. You might remember
Moses
ACL net.
Remember Moise Foku?
Oh yeah, Moses Foku. Yeah.
Joe Mays.
K-O-U. Yeah. Who's that? Who else?
We can go on and on.
What was the other name?
Joe Mays.
Joe Mays. Yeah. It's funny. He lasted longer with other teams, I think.
Yes, he did. He did.
So I would say this at linebacker. I would agree with your assessment to give T.J. Edwards a shot. Gary is right now a starter. Bradham's under contract on his last year.
But he's not. You and I both agree he's very unlikely to be back.
I don't see him returning.
Right. I'd rather just try to re-sign Camus.
And Duke Riley's a good special teams player. Well, that was a nice little find for them in that trade. Yep. I don't know that he has started before, but to me, I think you're one thing about Flajole though. And let's not forget they brought Corey Nelson in. That didn't work. Flajole didn't want him. If you look at the linebacker, LJ Ford was a major mistake. If you look what happened,
cutting him was a mistake. Yes.
I mean, it's crazy. He kicks ass, and don't bring up scheme fit because that's just nonsense. The guys,
he can play.
They missed on that one. That was Flajole's fault. He had him when he was a rookie in Cleveland 10 years ago.
Yep.
He didn't want him. They cut him, and he wound up starting for Baltimore after like a couple weeks. So he's got to do a better job in terms of evaluation. I mean, I just gave him credit earlier, but the stuff that they missed on, I mean, the guy's the linebackers coach. So their personnel staff has got to get with this guy and make sure they're on the same page, because as much as they don't invest in the position in terms of money, you could say they invested some in Bradham for sure. They just got to they got to develop him better, because they got to evaluate better. And I think the linebackers coach is part of this issue. He's just, you can't just not like guy. Howie's going to listen to his coaches. Right. So obviously there's something Flajoll is not liking about these guys, Geoff. I don't know what it is, but it's got to be better.
I don't have one single name for you, Adam. There's a million of them out there, because these positions tend to be a dime a dozen. But if they don't, and I don't think they will, and neither do you, bring back Bradham, you can go ahead with trying to bring back Camus and put him with Singleton and Nate Gary and T.J. Edwards. But it wouldn't shock me if they did, because they've done this the last few years, trying to get a veteran on a one-year deal like a Paul Warlow or someone like that. So there's a million of them out there. You can get.
You're right. I'm looking at my list.
John Bostic, David May, Corey.
They're all second. They're what we call second wave of free agency guys.
Teo. Yeah, there's a million of them.
Yeah, Teo is a guy that's got positional versatility.
Right.
Yeah, you don't even need to worry about that position. It would be nice. I'm with the fans who say, can't they just finally develop someone who could be a really good football player?
Well, yeah, and to do that, you could probably draft one a little bit higher than you normally like to. You know, it might be in the second or third round.
Or third round, yeah. Spend a little bit. You know, I mentioned the brown bagging of the linebacker position, which means being cheap.
Right.
You know what? Just develop these guys, and I'm with the fans. You know, I've been reading the comments about what's the problem with the linebacker position? Why can't they develop it? And it's just some of the stuff I talked about the coach. Guy's a veteran coach. Ken Flajoll is actually a pretty good coach. There's something going on here since he's been here where you look at the revolving door at the linebackers, Geoff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Bradham was brought in because he of Schwartz, and Camus was a good story.
Right.
I'll give him that credit, and Gary, but overall, it's just been a mixed bag since 2016.
Yeah, well, I mean, people do forget sometimes that you can't pay every position. You pay a lot of money for DNs, you pay a lot of money for tackles, you pay a lot of money for corners and safeties.
Got to develop them.
That's why you have to draft and develop a good young linebacker. So that'll do it. That's good. I like that. This was a good comprehensive review of what the Eagles can, should, might do for free agency all around. We did offense last pod, defense this pod, and really, really appreciate all the interaction we've gotten over the last few pods, especially with this updated equipment. We've got these microphones. The sound is great. So we appreciate everybody and their feedback. And that's going to do it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. We thank all of our friends and affiliates, 97.3 ESPN. Make sure you're downloading their free mobile app at 97.3ESPN.com. You can listen to me, Mike Gill, Ryan Rothstein from 2 to 6, Eitan Shander, 12 to 2. Thanks to our friends, PHLSportsNation.com. They're always enhancing the fan experience with their coverage of the Phillies, the Eagles, the Flyers, the Sixers. I know they're fired up about spring training being here. They've got some great podcasts too. Check them out at PHLSportsNation.com. We always thank Hunter Brody, our executive producer. Sports Talk with Broads is his YouTube page. Please check it out. There's just unbelievable content because Hunter is up on the Phillies, Sixers, Flyers, Eagles, everything, and he's got some of the best and most passionate fan takes that a Philadelphia media guy has to offer. So check out Sports Talk with Broads on YouTube. Make sure you're following Inside the Birds on Twitter at Inside Birds. Check out our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that, the Inside the Birds YouTube channel. And again, please, please, please continue to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on your major podcast platforms. We also have a new contest out on I think to win Eagle socks on our Twitter page. So if you haven't seen that yet, check it out at Inside Birds on Twitter, and you can win a pair of Eagle socks. All right. So as always, we thank you all for flying with us inside the birds. If you're listening to this, you obviously like podcasts, and you probably like music too. On Spotify, you can listen to all of that in one place for free. That's right, you don't need a premium account. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcast so you never miss an episode. You can download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are. You can easily share what you're listening to with your friends via Spotify's integrations with social media platforms like Instagram. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now. Just search for Inside the Birds on the Spotify app or browse podcasts in the Your Library tab. And follow me, Geoff Mosher, so you never miss an episode of Inside the Birds. Spotify is the world's leading music streaming service, and now it can be your go-to for podcasts too.